Topical issues. Journey through Kenyan voting in a nutshell. I once talked about voting in Kenya, gave a brief history. And I would just like to make a recap because it's always good to remind one another during such a trying times when some people are talking of this and others are talking of that, others are demanding this, and it's sometimes even confusing to the common public. Sometimes it is demanding, and sometimes even trying to put the Electoral Commission in a situation that makes it difficult to operate or make certain decisions. I know they are competent people, they are very competent. And I know we have competent civilians, people who know the law and know everything beyond what I know. But to the majority of us who are the laymen, we just think of the process and we think of the commission, but we don't know what goes in there, what is required there, or we know little. So for those who know, and for those who are in the commission, this is for us to go through, and if I'm wrong because I'm a layman, please correct me. I stand corrected. And if you realize also of these layman's things that I'm talking about, there's something that may not be in order, do the necessary adjustments so that when this registration is over and you have verified, because sometimes there were times when people would enter into positions without the requisite qualification. I'm not saying they were. There was a time when we didn't have these qualifications. And people operated without those qualifications. But now that they are, it's always good to put those things in order so that in future, when somebody is there and has an opponent or an enemy, the person cannot use that to get at that person and get to the commission. There are always those likelihood. Some people will make it through with some things that do not go correct. But when they create an enemy, that is the point that the enemy will hit with, and that is the point that the commission will be hit with. So it's always good to ensure that every detail, all the nitty-gritties are in order. So that when something passes through your hands, you may not find yourself in a legally embarrassing situation. So let's go through the journey of what used to happen, because I've been there for a while. So I was there, I found it going on, and I was there. So I've been through the process. As a child and as a grown-up, I saw what my dad was doing. I would listen. What I saw happening at an age that I understood, and what is happening at the moment. I will start the first type of voting. It was the ballot papers, the Electoral Commission, and there would be stations, polling stations, and then people would vote. There were metal boxes sometimes, and people would vote, have the cards with people's symbols crossed, and they would put in the boxes, and then the boxes of all stations were ferried to a collecting center, a counting center, where they were counted, and the DO was the returning officer. And for the bigger slots, the DC could sometimes be the returning officer. So the results that were given there, if you did not agree with them, you take your disputes to court. But they used to have a lot of fracas because there are times when these boxes were being taken and people would gang around and there are chaos, and then people would say some boxes have been stuffed when they are being moved to the counting center. Some boxes would miss, and sometimes people would argue over that. Sometimes everything would be in order, but those who had lost would use that as an excuse to complain. So it was that way. And people sometimes did not have confidence because things would work out right. But there's no way you could explain to people that you moved boxes from one place of the constituency and then all the boxes moved some distance to a counting center. So after some time, there was a suggestion that the electoral body that time decided, the president suggested, and it was okayed. It was okay because they said, this paper thing, one could stuff the boxes, one could make some boxes disappear, but the sure thing that you could not do was to have the people who are supporting somebody with their cards and everything in order, and then they queue behind a candidate of their choice. At first it worked. Then later, there was some compromise. You will find that some returning officers who hated certain people or had been compromised in one way or another, because these things happen to us, we are all human beings, would sometimes count a long queue and count a short queue. And when they are announcing, they pretend they have forgotten that QA is QB and QB is QA. So they announce the results for B, which is a long queue in QA, and then the short queue in QB. And when they have announced, because they are the returning officers, they tell people to disperse. So you will keep arguing. It was not the time when we had these video cameras. That is the time when the cameras like Lubitel and others were there. You can only photograph, and photographing those things sometimes would make you be rebuked because they didn't know why you were photographing them. So there was no other evidence. You complaining, the queue was long, the others complaining, the queue was short, and the returning officer would simply say one thing: this one has been declared the winner, so go to court. Some people got beat and left everything. Some people would go to court and it would take a long time. So that got its own problems. And then out of that, we went back to that other voting when people are not satisfied. But after some time, people thought there should be changes in the electoral system of the country. So it was passed that the electoral commissioners will be the ones who will be the returning officers. We shall have an electronic voting system. It was supposed to be purely electronic. But after some time, some people say it's supposing the gadgets don't function, because that was the time when we had the Kimskit using batteries, the radio battery, the radio cells, the cells that you buy from Everready and use in cameras, the computers that needed, mostly it was Kimskits that needed batteries. Sometimes some batteries would come and you find they were not charged. And the arrangement was this Kimskit would be used for identifying. And then from identifying, you'll be given the voting paper, follow the process, and then they'll be counting. But then it was declared that the station, the polling station, if it is one here, no vote, no box will move out. The boxes were to be transparent, which they are. No box will move out. Everything will be completed here, counting done there, and once verified, there was, I think it was the Kim's kit, or there was a phone that was to be used to send the information by satellite to Nairobi, and and then they would go sorting out according to the county. But what happened is almost 55% of the Kim's kit could not work. So it had been suggested that we have a physical register. So now the physical register worked, the Kim's kit worked in some places, many places it did not work. So it was difficult to quantify the voting. Do you use the Kim's kit, or do you use the physical register? It had a problem, and even the time when we had our voting problem, the time Kenyans lost against one another, it was part of the problem. Then it was suggested that we should have pure electronic voting. But the same politicians again followed it up. Now, how shall we be able to ascertain? So they still retain the ballot box and the physical register. And that's why when we have elections now, there is still that story of stuffing. There is still that story of some people have forgotten that these things are not carried to a voting station. So even when people are moving around, because they have been told to go and ensure that the votes are not stolen. And the votes cannot be stolen because they are in one center. In that polling station is in that place. So the counting and everything will be done there. And then the agents are given the results. The results wired to the headquarters. And then that's when now the ballot boxes can be moved when the whole process is over. But we'll hear sometimes some rumors, some things, that the boxes are being carried to the counting center. There are no counting centers in the modern voting. It is the polling station. That's all. If it's a room, that room. Once it's finished, it's counted in that room, confirmed in that room, and then after the agents get the results, wired until when the whole process is over. So I would like to correct some things that we had even during the recent voting. People saying now they are carrying to the... No. People may be moving, doing their own things, but let's remove that old notion that there is carrying of boxes when people are counting to a centralized place. It ended. It's not there. And then something else that is there. If that happens, so the boxes are moved in any circumstance, then everything becomes null and void, according to my understanding. If I'm wrong, correct me. So the voting place, that room, is where your results for that center shall be counted. Everything goes through there and are counted. That has been the process. But still, there is that process of identification. Like we said, there are people who can be able to identify, and you can find some place when some polling stations are in people's strongholds. There are times when people want to riot and all the rules are disregarded. That's why I just have a suggestion. It may be a bad suggestion. If it's bad, don't take it. If it is something that can be useful, please take it. If we go purely electronic, identify electronically, vote electronically, remove these ballot papers and the boxes, then there is nothing to carry around. Then there is no feeling that people are carrying votes in or are removing votes out. Because you identify electronically, you vote electronically, and you go. Do we say you go electronically? No, you go physically. Isn't it? So, once you have voted, somebody cannot, and the appliances are working. Your fingerprint will not be stolen. If you vote by fingerprint, it will not be stolen, and it can be identified. And somebody purporting to be you, saying the fingerprint, because people have that habit, they can even scratch their fingers and say they do rough work and now the fingerprints can't work. This is my idea, and this is my... and they can easily go through. Or in places where people now are supporting a candidate, all rules sometimes are left like that because you are in danger of being attacked by people if you try to be very, very persistent. And even the voters are afraid because when you take the box, when they are counting, they are likely to think, to see so and so could be the person who did this. And if it's electronic and it's secret, the moment you vote and you go, because nobody will give your fingerprints, it is for the purpose of a court case where they can match fingerprints that almost look alike but not the names, and not the identification cards. Sometimes we may need the, what do you call it, the ID card. The ID card could be everything that you need. Purely electronic, because legally Kenyan voting system is supposed to be electronic. Look in your books. The only thing that these people are supposed to get is that form where they confirm that those are the results. But nowadays, it's not a matter of confirming or doing what. If you get them, if it's electronically or whatever, those are the results. You sign, and if you have grievances, take them to the next step, because those people can change nothing. In fact, if anybody tries to do anything, it's illegal, they'll be put in. But the only sure way could be this, electronic. Go electronic all through, nothing to steal. And then the others you can, because it will be funny when you are doing so and so has got, if you start counting them openly within that, the way people are saying that you will be giving them tabs after maybe an hour, it will even be dangerous for the people who are voting, because so and so, and in certain areas, they take it to be a zone for certain people or certain people. And certainly other votes for other places are there, and we cannot trust anybody who sees that. Some people of either ethnics or suspected will be attacked. So the best thing is, let it go and be unveiled in the end. In the end. Electronic. You don't carry electronic things like pens, like watches, like your phones. In fact, one should prohibit all those things. Just go with your ID card. Why? Because some of these gadgets are the gadgets that are used in hacking. So, the Electoral Commission should make their system hack-proof. There's nothing hack-proof, but you can be able to do it in such a way. You have an internal circuit, disconnect from everything outside. Have things like your own employees, not getting hired people, because those hired people are the ones who create loopholes. Your people only, your commission, you work it out. Have CCTV cameras watching all over. You don't need people. This other organization they talk about. In fact, the CCTV cameras will watch better because they are not partisan. And connect it to the headquarters. That will be the best system. But it is open for whatever, because the Electoral Commission has the mandate to do everything. If they feel the present one is the best, fair enough. If they feel pure electronic is enough, fair enough. But for me, pure electronic would be the best. Who would wait for the votes to count that they will be stolen? Your fingers. And if somebody has to go deeper into that, you can be able to ascertain so and so voted at this time. This is the ID. This is the fingerprint up to the second. That's what computers do. They are better off. It's more credible evidence for taking the commission to court than where we say we saw and these people appeared to be quarreling and there was some. No, this one you are certain. If there is CCTV camera footage, you are certain. And make sure they are hack proof, they cannot be maneuvered from outside. Since the law says that would be the best, but the Electoral Commission, remember, the Electoral Commission has the final say. Not me, not you, not anybody. You can suggest, but anything that will fall within the legal frame, it is for them who will decide how it will be. That is my suggestion, that is my take. But if you have a dissenting opinion, the way we were told, you can be able to utter your things like that, and then they see, but the final position remains there. They are the only ones mandated because they went through parliament, they were vetted, they got everything that is there, and none has been accused of corrupt practices. Or is there any that I may not be doing? Up to now I have not heard of it. I don't listen to many media outlets. I've not heard. If you have heard, then correct that place. If they have not, they are the legitimate people. And they are the ones who will take us through. If they have, then you can challenge. But I've not heard of anything. That will be the best way, so that people don't start saying in the long run, one person could vote 5 times. I saw him use his fingerprint. I saw him then go to the register, identify himself. I saw him use maybe his birth certificate. I saw him use the passport. And now, we cannot be sure if he did some other thing. Now we are not sure. If those things are removed, they remove those doubts. You have a straight thing. So long as the Electoral Commission also will make sure that there is no foul play in any way. That's the best system. That's my take.